I went to a community college in Champaign. It was called Parkland College. I technically went for 4 years. Couldn't quite figure out exactly what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus on web design, but I like the design aspect more of it. I've actually got 2 degrees. I've got a web design degree and a graphic design degree from Parkland. It took me 4 years to get through it. It was, I don't know, it was a lot of trying to figure stuff out with the classes. But towards the end of my time there at Parkland, that's when I was really starting to want to become a filmmaker. I mean, that's when I almost went back to school for cinematography down at SIU in Carbondale. I ended up reading a book by Robert Rodriguez, Rebel Without a Crew. It talked about his very first feature-length film that he made called El Mariachi. It's technically kind of a prequel to Desperado. I don't know, Desperado might be a remake of El Mariachi, I'm not too sure. But he made it with a budget of like, I think $2,000, made it with one of his friends that he'd kind of met along the way. After reading this book, one of the things I took away from it was what film school is going to teach you is basically how to spend money to make a feature-length film. And he said if you've got the skill to do it, just pick up a camera and start shooting. So that's what I did. I ended up buying a Sony camcorder, which I think is the TRV 950, but it was a mini DV tape. So I spent a couple days kind of drawing out the storyboard for this little snippet of a short film that could have been part of a larger story. Like, this didn't have to have any meaning to it. It just was an experiment for myself on shooting, editing, sound, music, and the whole thing. While my U of I roommates were gone on spring break, I stayed at the apartment because I still had to go to class. So I shot this very one-sided story of just me. I didn't have any dialogue in it because I didn't want to talk in front of the camera. But it was just, these cool shots I had in my head. I kind of put them together. I threw that together and then showed it to my roommates and asked them if they wanted to be a part of the second side of it. So I drew out the storyboard, the rest of the storyboard for that side of it, and shot that over a night with one of my good friends from back home. We ended up becoming roommates for a couple years while he went to the University of Illinois and I went to Parkland. So he's the other character in this story, the bad guy. So we shot that and it turned out pretty good. It was a great experiment. It was just to see if I even enjoyed the process of filmmaking, which after doing that, I wanted to continue doing it some more. So. This is the computer that I edited the briefcase on. It's about a 15-year-old machine, so I need to get some footage off of it, so I really hope it still boots up. So the computer didn't work. Probably what that means is the video card has gone bad. They've got electronic components that will eventually just kind of dry up. So what I'm doing now is I pulled out the hard drives from the computer and I've dug through my box of old external hard drives. Hopefully what I can do is take the hard drive from the computer, plug it in to the external drive, and pull the data off of it. That was a pretty big project for that time. It was the very first thing that I actually spent the time to think about and then spent the time to edit. I tried to get the scenes out of my head in as clear of a way as possible, by doing the storyboard. I wanted to go into it with a full plan of how I wanted to shoot it. I wanted to figure out how the camera was going to be set up in the shots. I wanted to figure out, everything, about how it was going to look. One of the things that I didn't really anticipate that I learned very quickly was you don't need to record 50 minutes of footage for a 5-minute short. At the beginning of the short, I've got a driving scene where I kind of wanted to show the progress of, just a couple different angles, of the character kind of pulling into this complex. So I end up turning on the camera and just driving down the interstate and then driving back. And, each way was about 15 minutes, I think. So I ended up recording, about 40 to 50 minutes for the couple different angles. And by the third or fourth angle, I realized, I don't need all this footage. So I just kind of drove around the block. I learned very quickly that to only shoot what you need, but also to leave enough at the beginning, at the end, so that you don't cut it off too soon. The final cut that I have isn't actually what I shot initially. I'd kind of shown it to some people and I wasn't going to show what was in the briefcase at all. That was just one of the things. I didn't want anything too cheesy and I didn't want anything too cliche in the briefcase. And I think I did both of those with a twist. So yeah, you'll have to watch it to see what's actually in the briefcase. because I do show it. I had no idea what to do with the video. I had no idea about digital, no idea about like things that you need to know about when you export video, like codecs and stuff. It's a lot easier today than it was back then. Back then I had a heck of a time. It was a combination of large file size and quality, and I could never get the two balanced right. It was either a really, really large file or it was a really, really tiny file that looked like crap. And sometimes there was a really, really large file that still looked like crap. So that was a pain in the ass back then, but I figured it out since then, because all these programs like Adobe Premiere make it a lot easier. Because back then you had to know the codecs, you needed to know bitrate, you needed to know everything about how you wanted it coded. It wasn't as simple as just clicking an option. Like I said, the briefcase was like the very first project that I really thought about. It was something that, really spurred my interest in filmmaking. I started reading all sorts of like script writing books, along with Robert Rodriguez's Rebel Without a Crew book. There's also like the Screenwriter's Bible. It's one of the top ones that I would recommend because it basically gives you everything about screenwriting. Talks about proper format, talks about your story structure, like how 3 acts go with all the little points in between the acts, like what should be happening within those acts. Talks about the different types of scripts and stuff. So that book is a great place to start if you're thinking about filmmaking. The software that I edited this on was Sony Vegas. I haven't used that for years now. At my first job where I started doing video editing, started working in Final Cut Pro 8. Started in 8, I think, then we moved up to 9, and then since working in the 9, I hated working in 9, so I switched over to Adobe Premiere and haven't gone back since. So I haven't even touched Final Cut X or 10, whatever they call it, because I don't know, Adobe Premiere just does everything that I want. If you're looking to get into editing and software, just get whatever you can afford. Basically, all you need is just to be able to cut clips. That's all I do. You don't need the fancy plugins, the fancy transitions and that kind of stuff. Cut the clips and put them together, and I'm sure there's free versions of stuff out there. It was a fun experiment. It was, just a great way to get into learning filmmaking because, like I said, so I did the shooting, the editing, a lot of the sound effects. Pretty much all the sound effects you hear in that are either downloaded from the internet at the time or re-recorded. So I don't think there's any real live audio within that. The music that's currently in there right now is actually music that I put together in, it's not GarageBand on the Mac, it's Studio, I don't know. I did it in like I said, 2005, 2006, something like that. It was a step-up software from GarageBand because I started using GarageBand, but it was too limiting, so I just went and used the higher end program. But so all the music is done by myself. I hate doing music. I didn't really enjoy doing this, but it worked. it did its job. So that's the briefcase. It's something that I've kind of wanted to make into a full feature length, and I just haven't really found that whole idea yet. And when I come up with my ideas, I like to make them original. I don't want to do anything too cliche that everybody's seen. So there's just a part of that story that I just can't figure out with the briefcase that just kind of keeps me away from it. Filmmaking is something that you're wanting to get into, and you're coming across these videos trying to figure out how to do it yourself. My advice is to grab whatever camera you can find and start shooting. Make a story, plan it out, and then start shooting, edit it, learn the software, teach yourself the software, study films. That's the best thing to do is see how other people shoot their stuff. Look at the camera angles, look at the setups, look at how they edit it. Try to figure out how many different shots they had. So that'd be my advice. Just study. Start making your own stuff, and it'll just keep getting better.